Mahatma Gandhi ji once famously said, "We but mirror the world. All the tendencies present in the outer world are to be found in the world of our body. If we could change ourselves, the tendency in the world would also change. As a man changes his own nature, so does the attitude of the world change towards him. This is the divine mystery supreme. A wonderful thing it is and a source of happiness. We need not to wait to see what others do. A shorter but popular summary of this code is be the change you want to see in the world, and I still live by it. It is through our actions, not others, that we make the world a better place. On the 92nd anniversary of Dandi March, let's remember how this non-violence protest changed the course of history of India. I am Tushar and you are listening to Protest of the Past. On March 12, 1930, Mahatma Gandhi ji launched a historical movement called Salt March from Sabarmati Ashram in Gujarat, Ahmedabad to the coastal village of Dandi in the state to protest against the excessive salt tax imposed by British. The significant non-violence act of civil disobedience movement against the British to come known as Dandi March or Salt March. During that time, the British had prohibited Indians from collecting or selling salt. Mahatma Gandhi decided that the Satyagraha would end on 6th March, the same day that Tyrannical and Revolutionary Crimes Act of 1990, popularly known as Rowlatt Act, was passed. That act gave power to the police to arrest anybody without any reason. The purpose of that act was to serve the growing nationalist upsurge in the country. Indians were also forced to buy staple diet ingredients from the British, who not only exercised monopoly over its manufacture and sale but also levied a heavy salt tax. The Salt March was collective beginning of a mass resistance movement against British. Another motive of this march turned into the civil disobedience movement, wished that might encourage extra humans to comply with Gandhi's example. Gandhi commenced his march with 78 of his department on volunteers. The march spanned 385 kilometers from Sabarmati Ashram to Dandi, which turned into known as Navarsi, now with the site Gujarat. Growing number of Indians joined them along the way when Gandhi broke the British Raj Salt Legal Guidelines at 8:30 a.m. on 6th April 1930. It sparked a huge-scale act of civil disobedience in opposition to the salt legal guidelines with the aid of using hundreds of thousands of Indians. After making the salt with the aid of using evaporation at Dandi, Gandhi endured southward alongside the coast, making salt and addressing conference along the way. The Congress Party deliberated to the level a satyagraha on Dhansana, work salt, 40 kilometers of south. However, Gandhi turned into arrested in the middle of night of 4th and 5th, 1930, simple days early than deliberate movement at Dhansana. The Dandi March and the following of Dhansana Satyagraha drew international interest to the Indian independence motion via newspaper and newsreels. The Satyagraha in the opposition to the salt tax endured nearly a year, finishing with Gandhi's launch from prison and negotiation with Lord Irwin on Second Roundtable Conference. Although 6,000 Indians has been jailed due to the Satyagraha, the British could no longer make the spot foremost concession. The Salt Satyagraha marketing campaign turned primarily based upon Gandhi's idea of non-violence protest, known as Satyagraha, which he loosely translated truth, pressure, literally. It means Satya, truth, and Argha. In the early 1930s, the Indian National Congress selected Satyagraha as predominant tactic for Indian society and self-rule from British rule, and appointed Gandhi organized the market campaign. Gandhi selected in 1882 for British Salt Act because of the first goal of Satyagraha, the Salt March, and the thrashing. With the aid of using colonial policies, masses of non-violence protested in Dhansana, which obtained internationally informative coverage and confirmed the powerful use of civil disobedience as a method of combating social and political justice. Although the Satyagraha did not produce immediate process towards domination status or self-rule for India, did not elect major policies concessions from British or attracted much Muslim support. 30 years later, the Satyagraha teaching, Gandhi, and March to Dandi had a large impact on American activists Martin Luther King, James, and others throughout the civil disobedience movement. The march turned into maximum large organized assignment to British authority for the reason that non-cooperation motion in 1922 and immediately observed the Poon Swaraj announcement of sovereignty and self-rule with the aid of using Indian National Congress on 26 January 1930. It received international interest which gave the impact to the Indian independence motion and commenced the national civil disobedience motion with endure until 1934. Now, I will end this episode by quoting Gandhi again. The future depends on what we do in the present. This not only goes for the protest, but our action and gestures. Our small actions of kindness others will slowly but surely come back to us. So be kind to others and yourself.